So Bruce, welcome to London and welcome to Hablo Talks. Thanks for your time this morning.
Oh, good morning, Russell. It's good to be here.
Yeah, great. So on Hablo Talks, we like to learn a little bit about, the people we're interviewing. So you may be surprised to know that you're our first astronaut.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Let's start by learning a bit about you and your journey and how did you become an astronaut and what have you been doing since?
Well, it was quite a journey to start with. I remember where I was in the 6th grade, 11 years old, when Alan Shepard first splashed down. And I always liked airplanes before that when I was a young boy. And when I heard about someone flew in space, I thought, wow, that's going to be something great to do. I'd love to do that sometime. But no one in my family had ever been to college or had furthered their education. But my mother encouraged me, since science and technology and engineering and math subjects came very easily to me. She said, you ought to try going to college and see how you like that. And so I was able to get in the Coast Guard Academy, the United States Coast Guard Academy, and graduated from there, became a Coast Guard helicopter pilot. And while I was going through flight training, I earned a master's degree while I was there. And in 1977, NASA started soliciting pilots and other people to fly the space shuttle because the space shuttle was being built. And that was the first time I had a chance to apply. So I applied, and then I applied for 10 years, 6 different times, trying to get into the astronaut corps. And finally, in 1987, they selected me, and I got to fly on 2 space shuttle flights. I was on the 11th flight of Discovery in 1990, and then the very first flight of Endeavour in 1992. And then I worked in industry for about 15 years. And when I had the opportunity to come and be the ambassador for the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, I jumped on that because what better job to have as a former astronaut, a veteran astronaut. I get to see astronauts every day there, which we have a different astronaut there every day, and participate and reminisce and all those great activities.
Yeah. Wow. So you literally applied 6, 7 times, and like every time you got a no back, did you not think, oh, maybe this isn't meant to be, or you just kept saying, I'm going to apply until
I never thought I had a chance, but that was one of the things. I mentioned my mother again. She instilled in me. She said, if you want something, just always apply for it, and they can reject you, but don't ever say, gee, if I didn't apply, I wonder if I would have ever got there. Yeah. So I kept applying every chance I got, and here I am.
Great. And actually, one of our main questions here is kind of your biggest mentors and the kind of best piece of advice that you've ever had. So I'm guessing that's pretty up there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I owe it all to my mom. Yep.
Yeah. And then I guess going into space, which everyone is, that hasn't been there is just intrigued about, obviously. I mean, can you put into words how it feels to be building up to launch day and being sat on launch pad and, that whole experience?
It's an amazing experience to start with. First of all, the training you go through. It took at least 3 years of training before you go fly in space, and you learn just a myriad of subjects, things you wouldn't think about. You have to study meteorology, oceanography, geography, geology, astronomy. I could go on and on and on, photography. And after you finally get through all that training, of course, you spend a year training with your crew. You get to go down to the Kennedy Space Center, and of course, all the astronauts live in Houston, Texas. We go down to Florida to fly, and the buildup is awesome. You're so well trained that when you actually get out on the launch pad, and they close the hatch, it's really a relaxing time because it gets quiet and you're just ready to go. You're laying there in your back, and 5 minutes before launch, you start the auxiliary power units that drive the shuttle, and then 7 seconds before you lift off, the space shuttle main engines ignite, and you can actually feel the shuttle lurch and hear it a little bit. And then at T0, the 8 explosive bolts that hold the shuttle to the pad on the solid rocket boosters, these babies back here, they lift off, and it's loud, and it's rough, and it's a kick in the pants, and off you go into space. And it's shake, rattle, and roll. And for the first 2 minutes, it's a really rough ride while you're burning the propellant out of the solid rocket boosters. But then when they separate and you just use the rest of the fuel from the external tank through the shuttle main engines, it's a nice, smooth, quiet ride. But that's when the G's build up. That's when they start pushing you back in your seat. That's when it gets a little bit harder to breathe and a little bit harder to talk. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, 8.5 minutes after you take off, you run out of gas and you come to main engine cutoff. We call it MECO. And so you push back in your seat a little bit harder to talk and breathe, and all of a sudden, poof, instantaneously 0G. Wow. You're free floating, and it's quiet, it's smooth. Don't even feel like you're moving, but now you're traveling at about 20,000 or 28,000 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
28,000 kilometers per hour. And
it feels like nothing.
You don't even feel like you're moving. It's
incredible.
You need to try. You ought to try it sometime. It's quite a ride.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome.
I'd love to. And so when you're up there and you're orbiting, you know, I guess you've seen some pretty cool sights. I mean, it's a unique view of the Earth, and
very unique, and it's amazing. You know, the things that catch your eye, like some country, you can see some countries' borders, where some countries have cleared the forests with all the farming, and you can actually see a border where the next country to it doesn't do that. You see, you know, volcanoes, and they look so different. You see hurricanes, and you're up above the clouds. And what's amazing is that even though there might be some turmoil in different parts of the world, everything you see up there is beautiful, even if they're just damaging on the surface of the Earth. So if you were an alien approaching our planet, you'd look at that and say, what a perfect place to live. It's just, it's paradise. And it's close to paradise, but as we know, it's not all the time.
Not all the time. That's amazing. And I guess in the travel industry, we always talk about travel on Earth as being a force for good, you know, experiencing new cultures and countries and that kind of acceptance. And I guess space travel is a similar thing. Is it, you know, why do you think space travel is a force for good? And
we owe it to space travel a lot of the developments that we've had in technology on the planet. And, you know, people ask, well, what's the biggest contribution? And my opinion of the biggest contribution has been the speed of computers and miniaturization, because it's so hard to get to space and take things to space that you've got all these things. And look what you have in the cell phone now. And
I know.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's very important for the technology that we develop going to space, but also what I like is that, you know, we're explorers. I mean, people didn't just be born in England, you know, centuries ago and say, well, I'm just going to stay here. We started exploring. We started going around the world. Well, that's what we're doing now. We're exploring space. The commercial industry, you know, NASA has contributed so much and developed the technology to fly into space, and they've handed that off to the private sector so that they can provide transportation up and back into space. And NASA's gone back to its roots and is back to the exploration part of it. So if we've got the Artemis program, we've already flown once. We're going to go around the moon the next time and land on it the time after that. So we're back to exploring.
Yeah, and the Artemis is the next generation, the new thing that's
that baby there. That's that rocket there, and it's the most powerful rocket ever built.
Wow,
something to see.
Yeah. And there's a story with the name and the astronaut that's going to be leading the charge in a couple of years' time. Is it a lady for the first time?
There's going to be the next time we land on the moon, there's going to be the first female and the first person of color landing on the moon. And, you know, it's just a matter of time. You know, they're qualified and it's a good time to go. They're very fortunate people. I wish I could join them.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then what do you think is kind of next for space travel in general, and how does the industry keep the next, you know, future generation of space explorers engaged and interested and excited about space travel?
Well, shows like this, you know, when it gets out to the public, a lot of people think space is routine. A lot of people don't realize that we've had the International Space Station permanently inhabited since 2000. You know, 23 years it's been up there with people on board. One of the great ways to get exposed to it is to come to the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. I mean, the people that come there, you can see the really young kids, their eyes are wide open. You know, they get to meet an astronaut. They get to go on rides to Mars. We've got this new exhibit called Gateway, where people get to come inside and see a rocket that's already flown hanging from the ceiling. They get to go on rides to Mars or a nebula or a dwarf star. They can go out to the Atlantis exhibit and see the Atlantis space shuttle that flew 33 times in space. So that's one of the great places to get inspired to go back to space.
So it's definitely a reason to visit the Kennedy Space Center next time anyone is in Florida. Anywhere in Florida
it is.
For the day.
And not only that, is that we're launching so much. We launched 57 times last year.
Wow.
And the visitor complex is really truly a 2-day event, and you can't see everything there in just one day. So if you come down for a week in Florida, we're only 45 minutes from Orlando. Yep. If you come to Florida, this year we're supposed to have like 80 launches. So the odds of seeing a real live launch while you're there during your stay is pretty high.
Yeah, which I imagine is a unique experience as well for visitors.
It is. Matter of fact, I was showing some people on the way over here today how this Falcon Heavy rocket took off, which just got 3 boosters to it. Yep. 2 of the boosters come back and land right there outside the Kennedy Space Center. And you can watch them come down. They both have their own sonic booms, and they land just like we used to think in science fiction movies.
Amazing. And then so next for you, Bruce, I mean, you've obviously, just listening to you have done so much in your lifetime. I mean, so many, tick boxes. And what's next? Is there anything that you still want to do, still want to conquer, or places you want to travel to?
I'm really spoiled.
Yeah.
But this trip to London and trip to, the United Kingdom is fun for me. I've been here before, but not spent a whole lot of time here. My job at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, like I said, that is a real fun thing to do. It's not work for me. I get to reminisce and see all my old buddies. So the future, eventually I'll probably just settle down and probably do a lot of hunting, a lot of fishing, a little bit of golfing probably, and then travel. I've never spent any time. I've never been to Africa.
Okay.
I haven't been to the continent of Africa. I haven't been to Antarctica. I'd like to do that. So those are a couple things on my
There's just a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Well, Bruce, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's fascinating. I could talk to you for hours. We only have 10, 15 minutes, but it's been amazing. So thank you very, very much for your time.
It was my pleasure, Russell. It was really my pleasure. Thank you.